What's up, guys? Today we're finishing out the big three, at least as like media consensus would have it, with Jayden Daniels. Now, I don't have him in my top three quarterbacks, but most people do, and I've seen a lot of people saying he's the best quarterback in this draft lately, which blows my mind. I don't think he's even close. He did win the Heisman Trophy, though, so we got to give him his due, and we got to go real deep on the film to figure out if he can hack it at the next level, what will translate. But before we get started, I just want to show you guys my grading rubric because in past videos, I've neglected to, and it might leave you a little confused on what all the grades mean. So I'm going to go through and grade each pertinent trait on this scale, as you'll see next to me. And keep in mind that a B is average NFL starting caliber trait. And keep in mind that like Gardner Minshew, he started a bunch of games last year, but he's not a starter. So there's really only like 20 to 25 starters at a given time, because a lot of teams are just kind of waiting for next year to try to get one of these guys like Jayden Daniels. So a B is average for a starter, and an A plus means like, I'm not sure there's anybody on earth better than him at this thing. A C plus is where we start getting into the weeds, and it's like, I'm not sure this guy has what it takes to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And if you ever see anything below a C, we're talking about a glaring weakness in the guy's game. You probably won't see an F, though, because an F is like you has to stick Christian McCaffrey at quarterback in the NFC Championship game and see how it goes because he's at least a good athlete. Let's start talking about Jayden Daniels. He's a 23-year-old prospect who had 5 years in college, 2 at LSU and 3 at ASU. He's really skinny. In fact, I'm recording this Saturday morning of the Combine, and he just refused to weigh in because he's afraid of what they'll see on the scale, which is really concerning because it means that he's almost certainly below 200 pounds, and he's probably significantly below 200 pounds. And as a 6'3", 6'4" guy, that puts him in the like Devontae Smith level of skinny dude. There's nothing wrong with being skinny. I'm sure he looks great off the field, but he's got to hold up for a whole season. And he is a run-first quarterback, which really worries me because he's not a passer who can run. He's a runner who can occasionally pass, and we will get into that. Additionally, he's a one-year wonder. He was good in 2023, or at least he produced like he was. But in 2022, he got benched multiple times. He only played a couple of good defenses this year, despite playing in the SEC. LSU just got kind of lucky, and the SEC had a bit of a down year, especially on defense. So he played Florida State and Alabama this year, and he didn't look good against either. He looked terrible against Florida State in all facets of his game, and against Bama, he was great as a runner, but he looked awful as a passer. Additionally, he played Georgia in his redshirt junior year, and he got benched in the first half. So against the best competition, he didn't really look good. But when he played civs like Ole Miss and Mississippi State, he looked pretty decent, and his stats against Georgia Southern, which I will never watch, were amazing, Madden-like even. So with that in mind, let's break down each and every trait that I think matters and figure out how good this guy is at football.
The first thing we're going to talk about is arm talent, and that begins with range and power, which is just how far he can throw the ball. I give Jayden Daniels a B+, because he can throw the ball about 55 yards as seen here, but he really has to step into it. He really has to focus. It takes an additional windup, and it looks like that's about all he's got. Whereas with May and Williams, it looks like they can throw 55 yards. We've seen it, and they can probably throw more like 70 if needed. Jayden Daniels really can't throw the ball to all areas of the field if you give him a clean pocket and some time, but he has a tendency to underthrow if he's really not focusing on throwing everything he's got into the ball. Next, we'll get into velocity, which is the combination of touch and zip. And as you saw in some of those deeper attempts, Jayden Daniels has really good touch, and he also knows when to drive the ball and is fairly capable of doing so. In fact, I think Jayden Daniels' ability to put velocity on the ball is better than his ability to throw deep, and I think that's because if he could fix his throwing motion, he could probably throw a little deeper. The issue is that Jayden Daniels is inconsistent and really can't make drive throws without his legs. So this particular play, I think, sums it up perfectly. Clean pocket, and because for whatever reason he's fading away when he throws this ball, it's got to go about, let's call it 30 yards, and the ball just hangs in the air. Right? First of all, if Drake May throws this ball off his back foot, it gets there in about half the time. Tops, Second of all, Jayden Daniels needs to step into the throw, but third of all, Jayden Daniels has a bad habit of not stepping into throws he should. So I really love his velocity alterations. I just don't think he has that much arm talent in the first place. Finally, his release, I think it's very average. Here's a really good example of it. He takes the ball back, elbow pointed, and he gets the ball out fairly quick, but it's not special, right? This is a fairly standard release, and it gets a lot slower when he's throwing deep downfield. As you can see here, he needs to put his ass into it. Next up, we're talking about arm skill, which begins with accuracy and precision. Now, accuracy, as you can see at the top right, is how often you hit that bullseye. It's your ball placement. Precision is your consistency. It doesn't matter if you're super accurate on 2 passes if you miss the other 14. So I give Jayden Daniels a C+ on his ball placement, his accuracy, because I think that he has some issues there. He very rarely throws into tight windows, but when he does, we notice the same problems. As far as precision goes, I think he's fairly consistent. He tends to underthrow his deep balls, and he tends to leave his shorter throws behind. Neither of these is a good mark, and frankly, accuracy at C+ is really bad for an NFL starting quarterback. But enough of my words, let's show you the actual film and break down the categories. The first of which will be accuracy deep. Now, everybody talks about Jayden Daniels' deep ball. It's lauded on Twitter, and PFF thinks it's one of the best deep balls they've ever seen. And frankly, I think that's ludicrous. Now, I'm not just going to give you my opinion. I'll show you every deep throw I graded in the 8 games that I did grade. B-. Remember that that's a little below average for an NFL starter, and that's supposed to be the strength of this man's game. So, in the 8 games I graded, Jayden Daniels threw 26 deep balls, which is ironic because Drake May, in the 11 games I graded, also threw 26 deep balls. Maybe not ironic, at least coincidental. Jayden Daniels was accurate on 11 of those 26 deep balls. That's 42.3%. Drake May was accurate on 20 of his 26 deep balls, which is something like 77% and is ludicrous. So it's not fair to compare Jayden Daniels to Drake May because Drake May has the best deep ball I've ever seen. But Drake May is better. So I've shown you all of the completions here, all the accurate passes. I'm about to start showing you all of the inaccurate passes. I played this one twice because I think that it really caps out his arm. From here, it gets really messy, right? So I showed you 11 completed balls, one of them twice. And now I'm about to show you 15 really bad deep balls. Uncatchable, inaccurate, not drops. Drops are accurate. Drops were in the prior video. There weren't very many. He's got really great receivers, and his players get wide open because he's got Malik Neighbors, who is going to be a superstar. He's got, I think it's Brian Thomas, who's going to be a first-round pick. And then this kid Lacey, their third receiver, I think he's going to be a really good pro. You'll notice that a lot of these are underthrows, with the rare exception. This one was close. A diving attempt, and it still couldn't be caught. Very, very rare overthrow from Jayden Daniels. But most of these are underthrows. He turns open receivers into jump balls. He lets his receivers get hit because he's not putting enough under it. He struggles with accuracy. Even here, his receiver is wide open. He has to throttle all the way down and stop so that he can wait for the ball. That's poor accuracy. That's poor anticipation. I don't know if it's that he doesn't have enough arm or that he simply doesn't know where to put the ball, but it's bad. Frankly, I don't see how this is deserving of a 99 PFF grade on deep passes. And it's not like I'm nitpicking. It's not like I'm showing you the plays I want to show you. This is every deep ball I saw while grading film. And I graded 8 games. 8 games against his top competition, right? I don't care what he does against Georgia State. I would much rather see what he does against NFL defenses like Alabama and FSU. And it's not like he didn't have the receivers, and it's not like he didn't have the O-line. The man was almost never pressured. His receivers were almost always open. There are a couple I didn't really know what to do with, and these are those ones. They're catchable, but only if your receiver makes a dope play, you know? And a contested catch isn't quite the same as a deep dime. Additionally, sometimes, you should cover Malik Neighbors. That's a 20-plus yard pass, but I don't think that it was impressive. And then this one, Malik Neighbors, you monster. A spinning pirouette catch over his head on the sideline. I don't think that that's let's say I don't think most NFL receivers make that catch most of the time. So I don't want to grade it as accurate, but I will let you. So there are 4 there at the end that I think you could change my mind on, which means that you could convince me that he was accurate on at most 15 of 26, which is solid but still not near what Drake May was hitting. And finally, this one was caught, but this is a box out. Like, this is excellent play by the receiver. It was an underthrow. Next, we'll talk about his intermediate accuracy, and there's not actually that much film here, so you've seen most of the throws I'm going to show you in this segment. They didn't throw to the middle of the field a lot, and when they did, it was usually wide open. But this is the one shining example of Jayden Daniels throwing into a tight window. And if you're a Jayden Daniels supporter, this play should be in your Rolodex so that you can pull it up when people say he was throwing to wide open guys. It's a really nice drive throw, and he either was way behind his receiver or he was trying to fit it between the safeties. I can't tell you what he was trying to do. I would just suggest that trying to pull this throw off against an NFL secondary is very, very, very risky. And the linebacker probably would have smacked it down. The safety probably would have taken it away from your receiver. Regardless, if this is what he was trying to do, the accuracy and the drive on the ball were on point. That being said, most of the rest of the throws you will see are just glaringly wide open. So yes, he can throw the ball accurately 15, 20 yards downfield, but I think I could make a lot of these throws because they're wide open. And that's what's going to happen when you have Malik Neighbors, who's going to be a top 5 pick no matter what. And that's what's going to happen when you have 2 other receivers who will certainly start on NFL teams. Now, this play, I think, is indicative of a lot of things in a negative way, but it speaks well to his intermediate accuracy. He's rolling left, he lets go of the ball at his own 35 while falling away, and the ball does get to the opposite 35. 35 plus 35, that's 70 minus 100. It's a 30-yard throw. That takes real arm talent, and the fact that he got the ball there accurately is impressive. But he did leave it a little high. He was very late on the throw. He had open receivers earlier in the play, and he got his dude blown up. It's not great processing, but it is really good accuracy. Finally, accuracy short, C+. I think Jayden Daniels has the worst short accuracy in this draft class. It's borderline unworkable. He missed short throws at a rate I have not seen before. And yeah, he still was accurate on most of his short throws because we all are, because most of the people watching this video can throw a ball 5 yards accurately most of the time. But Jayden Daniels was really bad throwing short. I will say, when he did create out of the pocket, it was very often the case that he would throw short. I mean, even given a ton of time, he's just missing behind. And you'll see, it's almost always behind the receiver. He's nothing if not consistent. Like, I shouldn't have a highlight reel this long for an NFL prospect throwing short balls poorly. Next up, we're talking about mental traits, the linchpin of which is processing. Now, I break processing into pre-snap and post-snap processing. Pre-snap is things like setting protections, recognizing blitzes, understanding what a defense is showing you, and then altering your play or calling out hot routes based upon what you've seen before snapping the ball. I give Jayden Daniels a B-. I think he's fine. I think he's slightly below average for an NFL starting quarterback at this. However, I didn't have a lot to go off of. Guy never had to make checks at the line. He never called audibles. He never set protections. But he did get to his... his first read was typically open, which tells me that either he's recognizing where he's supposed to go or they're winning so often and so dramatically that it doesn't matter where he looks, somebody's open. That being said, I'm not sure that being strictly competent as a pre-snap processor is impressive when the guy is a fifth-year starter and he's only 6 months younger than Justin Fields, a guy who's already flaming out of the NFL. So take it with a grain of salt. Next up is post-snap processing, which I gave Jayden Daniels a C on, and I could have gone to a C-. This is probably the worst trait in his bag of tools. When it comes to post-snap processing, Jayden Daniels is really slow, like super slow. You'll see on this play, he's got two dudes open already. You can hit 11 on a back shoulder, or you can just hit the drag like you're supposed to. He doesn't notice. He waits so long that the drag now crosses over into this linebacker's zone and is no longer open. Notice that the tight end is also open at the top right of the screen. By this point, pressure has finally arrived, and that's because Jayden Daniels hung onto the ball too long, not because his line got beaten. Notice that he also had his running back as a safety valve on the left if he thought pressure was coming. He didn't notice any of this. So the man had at least 3 outlets to get the ball out of his hands, and he failed to. Then he almost fumbled, then he took a sack. That's really poor processing. I won't break down every play, but here's another one. Top of his drop, wide open over the middle of the field. He's not looking at it. He's laser focused on this streak at the top of the screen. And I can tell you right now what he was thinking. He saw one safety up top pre-snap, so he thought, oh, it's probably cover 3, or it's man cover 1. Therefore, I'm going to throw the one-on-one to my receiver. It's going on a streak at the top of the screen. That's why he never looked at the guy in the middle. However, a really good processor would see, oh, my receiver's not winning deep, and I'm on my own goal line. I got to get the ball out quick. I should either check the backside curl or even check this post up the middle, because the post is open because the safety is so deep, so afraid of that streak. And when you're looking at that streak, you should be seeing this safety up top and thinking, wow, he's really giving me a lot of cushion. I should turn my head and zip this ball into the uncovered dude over the middle of the field. It's a phenomenon that won't happen very often in the NFL, but it's one that a good processor takes advantage of. And instead, Jayden Daniels turns it into a poor run. Again, wide open curl at the bottom of the screen. The inside route is winning on the post right here. And Jayden Daniels is simply not looking. Now, it is third down, so you need a big chunk, but you can also loft the ball to your tight end over where that 10-yard line marker is and get a first down that way. Multiple dudes open, plenty of leverage, plenty of time, and instead Jayden Daniels on 3rd and long tries to run up the middle through a nose tackle. How do you think that went? Here's what he was looking at in the pocket, and he decided to run into. Not great. Top of the drop. I mean, my answer is clear. If they're even, they're leaving. Dude's open. Instead, Jayden Daniels waits. Now, from this pocket, he still could have hit number 2 over the middle. He's open. I understand not wanting to wait that long. However, I don't understand trying to run into a muddy pocket. And this is a big problem with Jayden Daniels is when the first read isn't obvious, he loves to run. Right? When he brings his eyes down, and then he stops thinking. Now, finally, Jayden Daniels is really late on his throws a lot. He'll notice a guy open, but he just won't throw it in time. Here's a perfect encapsulation of this. So 11 is open on the crosser, and you can put that ball to him, but you got to put it low. He's late and floats it high, and this should have gone the other way and should have lost him the game. Right? Let's show you the wide copy so you can see what he should have done, what he should have been looking at. Top of the drop, it's 2nd down, everything's available to you. Right here, he finally recognizes the right guy, right? He does a good job of extending the play, and he notices the right guy, but it's not the right throw, and it's far too late, and he doesn't have enough zip on it, and he misses the safety coming in. Here's another one, late recognition. So first of all, he steps up in the pocket, very nice job. It's 1st down, dump it off to your running back. If you don't want to dump it off to your running back, who's got plenty of room to work with, Malik Neighbors in the middle of the field is running away from the protection into the void. Throw the ball to him. Instead, Jayden Daniels steps out, rolls left, and then very, very late, way too late for my taste in the play, decides to try to gun one and gets his receiver beheaded. This is a suicide ball. You can't do this. There's just a lot of plays of Jayden Daniels leaving wide open receivers on the field. I mean, everything's open. It's 1st down, so everything's an option. And he's doing nothing. He stands and waits until everybody's covered and then decides to try to make the crossbody throw. You've already seen this one, but it's really unimpressive from a mental and physical standpoint. Pocket presence. The next area of mental traits is just how well Jayden Daniels handles the pocket when it's muddy, when he needs to slide, noticing free rushers, and I gave him a C-. I think it was really bad. Primarily because he just doesn't realize when he's hot. He doesn't realize when pressure is coming, and he fumbles because of it often. Like, here, he just runs into the pressure. And a lot of the time it's because he's not seeing dudes open downfield. If you look to your left, there are two players at the top of the screen who are streaking and they've beaten their defenders. Daniels doesn't let go of the ball and just puts his head down and runs into a defensive tackle. Finally, we'll talk about Jayden Daniels' athleticism, which is what gets a lot of people really excited. In fact, in all the games I watched, there were only 3 in which he played well, and all 3 were because his legs carried him. I give his mobility an A-, and you can see he's a good runner. He's crafty, he's got good balance, and he's very fast. And that being said, there are some weaknesses to his ability to run, and it largely stems from the fact he's tiny. There's not a lot of power in his game, so he relies entirely on speed, and I think that he's fast, but I don't know how fast. I don't know that he's going to be a lightning flash like Lamar Jackson or Justin Fields. You'll notice that on a lot of these runs, the box is completely empty because teams are going heavy coverage, like right here. There's nobody in the box. There's one linebacker, and he bails out immediately because everybody's playing cover 7 and cover 8. They're all dropping 7 and 8 into deep coverage because they're so afraid of these 3 excellent NFL receivers. So right here, yeah, Jayden Daniels breaks off a big run. Who's there to stop him? And it's nice that he has this in his tool bag and he forces defenses to be honest, but defenses aren't going to be so overwhelmed as they were by this all-star cast of receivers in college. Right? Like, who is he making miss? Whose angle is he breaking? Now, I like this run a lot because number 6 is a DB and Daniels broke his angle with speed. However, most of the time, it's just wide open fields. And notice that he goes flying when contacted. This is not the kind of guy you want breaking tackles. I didn't include them in here, but he has 2 quarterback sneaks like right after this play, both of which fail because he just can't push at all. The man is, look at him. He's tiny. Now here, he's getting, I don't think he's that blazingly athletic. And when I say I don't think he'll run a 4.4 if he runs, it's because of plays like this, where a defensive end chases him down. Yes, it's a horse collar, but it shouldn't have been close. Right? And like here, he catches a safety flat-footed, 25 in the middle of the field. So Daniels has a full head of steam here, and the safety is flat-footed, running the opposite way. Safety still easily catches him before the line of scrimmage. Another issue I have with Jayden Daniels in the run game is that he has a really bad habit of pulling the ball on read options when he should not. Here, if he hands the ball to 3, they've got a double team on 1 man, and it's probably a touchdown if the running back jukes slightly to the right and cuts through that hole to the right rather than running into the free man. Instead, Daniels holds on to the ball and falls. Another one, hand the ball to 3. He's got nobody to stop him, right? If you hand the ball off in this scenario, you're looking at a huge gashing run, but instead Daniels holds on to the ball. I don't want to call him selfish. I don't think that he's a bad guy, but he certainly holds onto the ball too often in read option scenarios. And I think that's because he's a slow thinker. I think it goes back to that post-snap processing, not as a passer in this case, but as a runner. He doesn't really know where to go, and he doesn't see running lanes. Like on this play, he decides to try to hurdle the entire defensive line 5 yards away from him rather than just running to the edge where he had tons of room, and he gets leveled. Another one where he decides to try to run, and that's great, but he's not going anywhere, and he had open receivers, and then he tries to break tackles, and he's tiny. It's not going to work. Running directly into the crowd. So while he is a good runner, his mental traits don't make him a great runner. Next up in athleticism is playmaking, and this is how Jayden Daniels extends plays, maneuvers the pocket with his athleticism, and creates out of structure. I only gave him a B+ despite the fact that he's really athletic, because the man simply doesn't extend plays very often. And when he does, it's typically to make short, simple throws or run. Now, that's largely because Jayden Daniels only threw the ball when moved off of his spot 20% of the time, according to PFF. That's the lowest I've ever seen. When he moves from the top of his drop, he does not throw the ball. That being said, Jayden Daniels, despite being a very slight man who legitimately goes flying upon contact with other players, he will stand in there and take a hit to make a play. He also can throw on the run pretty well relative to his regular arm talent. So while it's above average, I just don't think he throws the ball enough. This is a lot of projection and potential in his ability to be a playmaker. Now, we saw this last year with CJ Stroud, who didn't look like a playmaker at all because when pressure came, he panicked and threw the ball away. And in the NFL, he utilized his good athleticism and his good arm talent to be really good at playmaking. And I think Jayden Daniels can do the same. Now, I do have one issue with Jayden Daniels as an athlete, and that's his tiny size and ball security. Now, he's going to be about 6'3", 6'4", and probably 190 pounds at the combine, and I think that means he's playing at 180. But you can see the man explodes upon contact. He just gets torqued by defenders. And he also, in large part because he's so slight, fumbles a ton.
My outlook for Jayden Daniels is that he'll be an explosive but not very good starter, and after 2 to 3 years, his team is going to be looking for a new quarterback, even though he'll have a lot of really exciting highlights and might even pull a couple of wins out of his ass in the NFL. My comparison for him is somebody who sounds pretty familiar. I think that he plays a lot like a skinny Justin Fields. I couldn't help but notice from the very first game I watched of him against Florida State, he has that same hesitation and really slow recognition that Justin Fields has that's really hampered his ability to be an NFL starting quarterback. The downside is that Jayden Daniels is only 5 months younger than Justin Fields and has similar developmental problems. Like, I don't even think it would be close if we were comparing 21-year-old Jayden Daniels to 21-year-old Drake May or Caleb Williams. Jayden Daniels was not an NFL prospect at 21, so he needed all that extra time to get to 23 years old and finally produce well in an ideal situation with a really good offensive line and incredible receivers. Frankly, I don't understand the hype. I know that he won the Heisman. I know he put up great stats, but most of that was against bad teams or in garbage time. And the number one trait people lock onto is his deep ball. Well, everybody admits he doesn't really have a cannon of an arm. And I showed you guys 26 deep balls. Only 11 were accurate. You could argue that at maximum, like 14 were accurate. That's still not very great, especially when Drake May's out here being accurate on 20 of his 26 deep ball attempts. Now, remember, accuracy and completion's not quite the same thing. I think that Jayden Daniels will also struggle in the NFL because he's going to rely a lot on his legs. Hell, if you're relying almost solely on your legs in college, it's only getting worse at the next level. And I don't think that he's going to be quite the athlete in the NFL that he thinks he is. I'd be surprised if he runs the 40-yard dash later today because I don't think he's a 4.4 guy. I think he's like a 4.5, 4.6 guy, which is good. It's slightly better than Caleb Williams and Drake May, who will probably run 4.6s. But he's also remarkably skinny and doesn't have near the agility of a guy like Caleb Williams, nor any of the strength that Drake May has. I don't think he's the best runner in this class, frankly. So I just don't understand how his game will translate to being a productive, high performance franchise quarterback in the NFL. I think it'll be fun. I think he'll have a few runs that remind you of Lamar Jackson with his long strides. But he's going to fumble a lot and he's going to get crunched and he will get hurt and he doesn't have the brain to operate a regular passing offense. He just thinks too slow. And I'm sure he's a great guy off the field. Justin Fields is notoriously extremely bright off the field, a really cool, really engaging, really good thinker. But on the field, it's different. Look at Ryan Fitzpatrick. Guy's a literal genius, and he cannot process on the field. It's a different thing. So that's my Jayden Daniels evaluation. I don't see it. I think his deep ball is mediocre at the very best. I think that his traits leave a lot to be desired. There are several really glaring holes in his game. And I don't really understand why anybody would have him in the top three quarterbacks, much less at quarterback one, other than he won the Heisman Trophy and he's got a big name because of it. Currently, he's tied for quarterback 5 for me with Michael Penix, and I still haven't even started grading guys like Spencer Rattler, Sam Hartman, or this Michael Pratt kid out of Tulane, all of which could be as good or better than Jayden Daniels. So I certainly wouldn't draft him in the top 2 rounds, which means I'm never drafting him, right? Like if he was there in the 4th or 5th round, I would probably take him. But if he's there in the 4th or 5th round, given the media sentiment, he has done something terrible between now and draft time. So it's just not a practical reality. What are you guys' thoughts? Do you think I'm missing something? You think I'm being too harsh? Got any advice for future videos? Until then, I'm going to be grinding more film. But hasta.